Welcome to Dirt, Sweat, and Gears, your runway of rotten chassis. We're here with my project Prelude. This is the car that I bought for $750 thinking that it was just going to be a parts car because of a salvage title. It turned out to be a clean title, low mileage car, worthy of bringing back to life, getting back on the road, and getting into someone's hands. In the last video, we cleaned everything up with a pressure washer, and then we steam cleaned the engine bay and started to tear down the motor and do a health check as we went along. This motor is healthy. There's only a couple of things that I wasn't too thrilled to see. However, given the fact that it was running when we got it here and that it's a low mileage engine, I'm really optimistic. I'm really overall satisfied with what I see here. And now that we've got it torn down, it's time to start rebuilding the timing belt assembly and hopefully get it running again. Now there's still this problem with the clutch. That is a whole separate project. We may also end up doing a rehose. However, again, we want to get this done. We want to get it started and running before we tackle anything else, because those systems aren't connected. It's not a while you're in there. So we're taking care of all of the while you're in there's for the timing belt, but we're going to address these other problems later on as we go. So let's get back into it. Let's get under the hood and take a look at this timing belt so far. So I wanted to remove the camshaft seals, and there's two ways of doing it. The first way is to get a big ass crescent wrench and to put it on right here. And then you just hold this thing while you turn the 12mm wrench on the cam gear. The other way is to take the whole camshaft off and then realize that you just did this 3 weeks ago and put the crescent wrench on the big nut, and then, yeah, do the exact same thing with the cam gear. Yeah, I'm an idiot. I know. Stop. So in addition to that stupidity, I've cleaned up around here. It looks really, really nice now. I've also cleaned up all of the timing parts, all the covers, the motor mount, and all that stuff. I have removed the timing cover seals, which are over there on the ground. I'm probably going to have to get new ones. And now I think it is time to do what I don't want to do, which is to drain the coolant. I hate draining coolant because it always gets all over the floor. Let me set up the camera so you can watch it get all over the floor. Hey, some of it's getting in the pan. That's disgusting. All right, that's enough. I hope that's orange coolant and not black sealer. I don't see any sparkles, so it could just be orange coolant, which is the wrong coolant for this car. So I've removed the old water pump, and it's pretty crusty in there. Next, I'm going to start cleaning everything I can reach. So obviously I cleaned up the engine block. I cleaned out the water pump area. Cleaned off the side of the oil pan. Cleaned a little bit off of the subframe back there. Just really whatever I could reach conveniently. Also the front cross member a little bit here. There's going to be plenty of opportunity for me to clean other things, so I'm not going to beat myself up over every little tiny spot. The front main seal is behind the sprocket down here. These little pieces come off. They're being very difficult right now. There you go. The main sprocket comes out. Yeah, that's going to take some doing. I'm going to have to get a screwdriver behind it and kind of just wiggle it. It's going to take probably, 30 hours or so to get that thing free for the first time in 34 years. And then behind that, there's another metal thingy, a guide for the timing belt. And so when you're trying to get these things out, you got to be really careful about the level of violence you use. Escalate violence very slowly, because if you escalate too quickly, you're going to end up leaking oil for the life of the engine. So like I said, be really careful. So what I did was, because my picks were not able to get through this rubber, I used a screwdriver, and I just kind of found a good spot that was comfortable for me to hold this in on, and I was trying to hold it like you can see the mark here. I was trying to hold it where it wouldn't damage anything, where I could kind of push it around and it wouldn't damage anything. So then I got it, and then I just gave it a little bit of tap. Just tappa, until it did exactly what it did, except on the car. You push in here, and then this other side comes out, and then I was able to just reach in and pull it out. You see in here, it was right about here where I had the screwdriver. So I had to, you know, really double check that I didn't score any of the metal here. And I didn't. I feel lucky. There is a little bit of luck involved, but it's mostly patience and care. So the angle is going to be a little bit hard to see, but I'm going to do my best. This is the old one. You want to match it up to the new one, make sure it matches. Yep, this does match. These are the exact same thing. So you don't, if you have a socket, a deep socket that will fit over this and help you guide it in, that might be helpful, but as long as you don't push it in too far, you can do this with your hands. And so what I'm going to do now that I've got it in there, it's not quite even, but it's all out. I need to get it in down here a little bit more. So I'm going to get something that will help me press this in. I'm going to use this socket extension. I'm going to use the bigger side. Just to, I don't want to push it past the metal casting. I want to get it flush with it. And then you got your crank sprocket, and you want to align the woodruff key to the outside. You don't want to do it on the inside. Ask me how I know. And that slipped right on. You don't need to hammer it in or anything. And then this goes on with the flared side facing away from the belt. So it curls up a little bit, and you want that curl part to face away from the belt. So this is how it's going to sit on. We're going to put our belt on top of that. For now, we're just going to leave it just like that. We got to do the water pump, and that's going to be kind of impossible to see from this angle, and I can't get the camera any lower than it is right now. So down here, we've got everything mostly cleaned up. It's not Tyson Hughie level of clean, but it is definitely Dirt, Sweat, and Gears clean. We've got the new water pump on. I used Ultra Black RTV to help seat the gasket. I prefer Honda Bond, but I was out of Honda Bond. I think it hardened and I had to throw it out. So down there we've got the new timing belt tensioner. That bolt is not torqued down. So once we're ready to put the belt on, we're actually going to tighten this down at its loosest setting to help us get the belt on as easy as possible. And then we're going to tighten that up. The cam gears, I have not threaded in these bolts yet because I need to put a little bit of Loctite on. I don't want to make the mistake that I made on my car over there. We learn from our mistakes most of the time, and I'm going to learn from my mistake this time. The cam seals have been replaced. I ended up taking these caps off to make it a little bit easier to get them out and the new ones back in. So I've reseated everything. This is all kind of ready to go. The first thing you want to remember here is that you definitely don't want to lose this woodruff key. It's tiny. The next thing is I used a little bit of Loctite on these bolts, and now we're going to tighten them down. Now the Prelude is an interference engine, which means that when the engine is out of time, the valves will hit the pistons and you could bend the valves. So you definitely don't want to just go in and start tightening this thing down with, you know, the force of the gods, because you're going to rotate the cam gear and that will shove a valve into a piston. And when it starts to tighten, you could actually be tightening a valve into a piston. So what you want to do here is you want to go back to this big ass crescent wrench and then fit it over the hex bolt on the cam gear itself, the cam gear, the cam shaft. So we just want to hold the crescent wrench here while we tighten. We don't want to move this at all. So we're going to tighten it down to, I don't know, click, click. We're going to call that good. Next, we want to set the engine to top dead center. That is both easy and tricky depending on how you approach it. So it's easy in that there is a pointer on the flywheel. It's tricky in that the motor is tilted back 15 degrees. So when you're lining up the cam gears, you're not going straight up and down. You're actually going straight up and down minus 15 degrees. So that's an 85-degree angle from, you know, parallel to the floor. Perpendicular to the floor. So there, that is dead on. It's going to be a little hard to see on camera, but the pointer is directly on that plus sign, that little plus there. So now we're ready to line up the cam gears and put the timing belt on. So the thing you want to keep in mind here is that these cam gears have all these markers on them. And like I said, you don't want them pointing straight up. You want them pointing straight up in relation to the rest of the engine, which is tilted back about 15 degrees. So we have these up markers. They're actually pointing towards each other right now. This one needs to go that way a little bit. This one needs to go that way a little bit. There's these other two little markers down here that when you're at top dead center, these markers will point at each other. So we need to align the cam gears at top dead center, and then we can slip this timing belt on. And you see this contraption I have here. This is a 26 millimeter. Ideally, you want something ever so slightly bigger because you can see it barely grabs onto that hex. Probably 27, even 28 millimeter will do the job. And then we've got our big crescent wrench on the other one. Again, like, it's barely hanging on, but all it needs to do is hold right where it's at. So then I've got, once I got them lined up, I've got the markers all lined up. These are pointing up. These are pointing directly at each other. Once I got that lined up, I slip the vice grip on, and it's just going to hold it like that. In theory, if you did this at the beginning of your project, as soon as you take the valve cover off, you could do an entire timing belt job without your cam gears falling out of time. So now we're going to get the timing belt on. So we need to, it's a little bit tight around this intake cam gear, and now we need to loop it around the water pump and the tensioner. This is the least enjoyable part of this process because timing belts do not like to cooperate. You line it up in one place and it falls off in another. It just fell off of the water pump. And now it fell off of the crank. Oh, damn it. Not all the way off. Just wanted it to the edge, you ass. Oh, it's so close. It's so close. Jesus Christ. Why is this so hard? And it fell off the damn crank. Oh, this is, oh, come. I hate this. I hate this. Don't put it back together like this. This is off by one tooth. How did I move it over a tooth and it's still off by a tooth? That is a special talent. I think we're in time. We might not be. We're not. Here is the reason why this is stupid. The tensioner is on this side, the right side, the intake side. This belt can't slip on to the intake side because there is not enough room between the cam gear and the body of the car for a belt. So this means you have to put it on the exhaust side. However, when you put the belt on the exhaust side, you've got 1.5 miles of slack on this side, which needs to be removed from that side. So you actually can't line this up perfectly and then put the timing belt on. That would make too much sense because, you know, on a car like the Miata, the tensioner is opposite of the water pump. For this to make sense, the tensioner would be on this side of the timing belt. However, this car doesn't make sense. So we have to design slack into this system by setting the crank one tooth behind the rest of the assembly. This means that instead of being dead on with the marker, we are before the marker. So now what I'm hoping is that when I start to rotate this to pull slack out of all of this crap, it's going to line up. There's only one way to find out. This has been really, really terrible figuring this out. So if this works, you're going to learn something, and hopefully you won't suffer the way I did. Well, long story short, it worked. I just spent 20 minutes doubting myself. Looking in the inspection hole, the pointer is not quite lined up with the cross mark, but it's definitely not off by an entire tooth. And looking at the belt assembly, there is still just a little bit of tension in here. So as I turn this thing, it's actually going to line up with the pointer. So let's give this a rotation and see what happens. So once you give it a full rotation by hand, you pop the tensioner again, let it tighten up again, and then you do that a couple of times, and your belt will be ready to go. There is just one problem. I forgot to put the stuff behind the cam gear. This guy. I forgot to put this behind it. I knew I was going to do that. You know, if you think about it, the right way of doing a thing is just the least wrong way of doing it. So, apparently I'm a lot faster at this, considering I've just done it 3-4 times. I had to take the timing belt off, take the cam gears off, and then put this inner cover back on. It's just these two stupid little bolts. With the timing belt installed, the next step is to reinstall the lower cover and the upper cover, wherever I put that. So there's a couple of things that are going to prevent me from completely finishing this job today. The first thing is the valve adjustment. We're going to need to do a complete valve adjustment on this car. It's probably the first one it's ever had. And so while I do have feeler gauges, I just bought a complete set of feeler gauges from Snap-on. And the reason I did that is because of the troubles that I had with that car over there. I had that Chinese set of feeler gauges that turned out to be wildly inaccurate, and I don't ever want to have that problem again. And even trying to show you the bolt I was working with is a pain in the ass. So this bolt right there, it's right there, right there, right there. That one made me cry. Like literally I was in tears trying to get that thing on, because all of the other ones threaded in, but that one could not find a thread. It turned out that the lower timing cover had kind of tacoed in a little bit, and so I had to get a pry bar and kind of just wedge it against the center of the cover while I found a thread for that dumb bolt. So this Snap-on kit comes with 3 different style blades. The first one being regular straight blades. The second one being bent blades. And the third one is like a 2-step blade. So it covers actually 2 sizes on a single blade. The other thing I noticed was that the ring with the 2-step blades was the only one that had a size that would get a good feel on the intake valves. Which according to the valve lash spec on the hood sticker, the intake valve lash is 0.10 millimeters. So the only one that had even close to that was the 2-step blade. The other ones didn't even have that size. So I started adjusting valves with a 2-step blade, and well, it broke off. It broke off. In cylinder number 1, the blade broke. And so I reached out to Snap-on's customer support. I did just buy this a few days ago, and they said that they would cover it under the workmanship warranty. I told him what happened, and he said he actually couldn't find this style of blade as I was describing it. It has 2 different sizes on it, on the same blade. And he couldn't find that, and he said that that must not be correct. It didn't seem right to him, but he was going to go ahead and honor the warranty for the blade that broke. I'm going to get a 0.010 millimeter, or the combo equivalent of that, in one of these styles, the straight blades. I think it's going to be a lot more durable, so I'm looking forward to receiving that. It's going to come in within a few days. So I've already got this engine at top dead center. I've got these 2 pulleys. The arrows are pointed up and the hash marks are pointed at each other. We're not really concerned with anything other than where the valves are at this point. So since I've got my exhaust feeler gauges, I want to show you on the exhaust valves first. So I like to adjust my valves a little bit tight. I was told by a master mechanic that that's typically what they like to do. So the sticker on the hood for exhaust valves is 0.18 millimeters. And so I have, for my go state, 0.152 and 0.178. So as long as we don't have too much drag on this, we're going to be fine. I want this to kind of go in and out pretty easily, but this to not go. So this is my no-go state. So I'm going to start with my no-go. And honestly, this one's actually, this one's a little tight, but that one's pretty good. This one's a little tight, so we got almost a no-go on this state, so I need to loosen this one a little bit. So you're going to need here a 12 millimeter and a screwdriver. So you got the screwdriver here, and we got the 12 millimeter here. So now, meow, we just loosen this one. Oh, Jesus. Loosen this one. You want to be kind of careful with these because if you strip the nuts, you're going to be in trouble. So that's cracked loose. Let's get my go feeler. We want to adjust this out a little bit. So you crack it loose and then you just turn the screwdriver. That's kind of what I want. Maybe just a hair tighter so it matches. Yeah, yep. And since this is the go state, you want just a little bit of drag, but not having to force it in and out. We believe in consent around here. So now the trick with this is, as you're tightening it, you have to counter the tightening action of the nut with the screwdriver. Because as you tighten it, you're going to actually also tighten the adjustment nut. So now that we've torqued this down reasonably, let's check this again. And it's just a hair tighter than the one next to it because I did exactly what I described. I tightened it a little bit. So let's loosen it a little bit, readjust. That's where we want to be. And then retighten it. It's tricky, but you'll get the hang of it. And that feels exactly the same as it does its neighboring valve. So this no-go feeler is a no-go. That's what we want. And you're going to need to do that 16 times. The replacement feeler gauge from Snap-on arrived, and I have already put it on the ring because I'm already done. So once it arrived, I went ahead and just did all of the valves because you've seen me do this before. I showed you how I did it with one valve. It's the exact same process all 16 times. And so if we look at our exhaust valve here, we've got our go gauge in here, and then we've got our no-go gauge, and it no-goes. So we are tight all the way around. And honestly, I think the reason why I didn't film it is because valve adjustments, you really have to have a mindset for it. You've got to be in a really patient mood because you've got to be willing to undo this bolt and then make a tiny adjustment and then retighten this while holding this and then check it again and be willing to do that over and over and over and over again on just one of these 16 valves because it's tough. So sometimes you'll tighten it and you'll end up tightening the bolt. Sometimes you'll tighten it and you'll end up loosening the valve lash. So you really just have to be in a mindset where you're just okay with doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again until you get it right. And I'm very rarely in that headspace. So I took advantage and I banged it out. So now we're going to move on to the distributor O-ring and the cam angle sensor O-rings, because we're very close to starting this up and I don't want to leak oil out from this side here. There's really not a whole lot to report here. All I got to do is cut this O-ring off and slip the new one on. I'm also going to clean up around here with my, well, I might not even need my toothbrush. I might just need a paper towel. I'm just going to clean up around here by the block. Above the thermostat, actually everything looks pretty good there, so I'm not really going to worry about that. So here's the cam angle sensor. It looks like it's been leaking from this O-ring because the oil came down here and collected. Could it be leaking from inside here? I mean, maybe, but it's unlikely with the mileage that this car has. It's more likely to be coming from this seal here, especially since we've got, you know, oil at the very bottom of this here, behind the cam angle sensor. So we're just going to clean this up. We're going to toothbrush this. We're going to hit it with some degreaser. No, we're going to, Jesus. We're going to hit it with carb cleaner. We're going to wipe it down with a paper towel, and we're going to get this ready to put back on. I am calling this good enough. These both look exceptional, very appropriate for a car with 127,000 miles. So I'm going to get the new O-rings and we're going to put them on and reinstall this. All right. We also have to do to the distributor cap and the rotor. And we may as well do that. You know what though? I want to get the valve cover on first. I'm tired of worrying about dust getting in there. We've also got new spark plugs, but I want to do that. I want to put the valve cover on. I just want to. It'll be fun. All right, so we got gloves on so I can make a mess with the RTV. And we're just going to get it in each and every corner. Probably about that much ought to do it. See, you really don't need much of the Ultra Black. You just need it a little bit in these corners to help seal off, really seal off the caps and to help stabilize the gasket. So, and then this is actually the hard part, because you're fighting gravity here and the clock, kind of. So this is kind of like a ticking time bomb of frustration, because you only really got a few seconds before it falls out. Because it will fall out if you jostle it too much. Like if you're navigating it around cam gears or throttle cables. I think I got it. I don't want to spend too much time screwing around. Let's get some bolts in. And you kind of want to put it down evenly. So just a little bit, just a little bit. That way you help it kind of settle down all at once. So to replace the spark plugs, we've got NGK copper, I believe. Let's see what these are. I might have a problem here. These spark plugs are used. I thought these were new. I mean, they look very lightly used, but they still look used, which bothers me. They are NGKRs, so they are just fine for this car. They are less worn than the ones that came out of the car, definitely, but they are definitely used. So just a little PSA about spark plugs. If you pull your spark plugs and they look like crap, it's not because of your spark plugs. It's because your car is not running the way it's supposed to. So on my car over there, I use NGK iridiums. I have been using iridiums, the same set, since about 2013, 2014, which is about 10 years as of today. And they look great. because my car runs great. So if you get NGK iridiums and they look all fouled and trashed, fix your car. Don't blame the spark plugs, because it's not the spark plugs. People like to say, oh, these were made for copper. You should only use copper. All I'm going to say is that you're wrong. You're just wrong. Cars aren't made for spark plugs. Spark plugs are made for cars. So you're just wrong. These cars came originally with copper, but that doesn't mean that they're the best. That doesn't mean that they're the worst. That doesn't mean anything. That just means that that is what the car came with. And using NGK iridiums, you're not really going to get a huge benefit. You're not really going to get any benefit in performance. Where you get benefit, potentially, if your car runs correctly, is longevity. Because I've had those same spark plugs for about 100,000 miles, and they still look awesome. I was going to do the cap and rotor, but then I just realized I don't have one. So we're going to put in the plugs. I got NGK wires because NGK is a great brand, but also they're blue. The car's blue. It matches the car. I don't want to go too far with reassembling this, because we're going to have to take it all out to take the transmission out. So I'm not going to bolt in these harnesses. I'm just going to kind of leave it for now off to the side. And we're going to drop this battery in and start the car. I popped off the coil because this thing sat for a while, and I want to get oil back through the system before I start it up. I also just want to crank it just so I can hear what's going on. If I did something wrong, it'll make itself pretty apparent. I am in neutral. Not that it matters, wheels are off the ground. That sounds pretty good. Let's hook this back up and hear this car run. The alternator charge cable isn't hooked up. All right, that is on again. No sparks, no fires. I didn't set the car on fire. I didn't set my garage on fire. I didn't set myself on fire. So we are in great shape. Come on, get on there. Okay, good enough. Now we should be able to run this car for a good minute. Sounds good. Sounds great. So that is great news. We just did a timing belt, water pump, drive belts, valve adjustment, new valve cover gasket, put it all back together, and it sounds amazing. I don't want to run this car for too much longer because I've still got distilled water in the system. I am going to need to flush that out. I also want to replace the thermostat, but in the meantime, I just want to be able to keep moving forward with this project. And right now, the most pressing issue with this car is the clutch, because you can't put it in gear without having the car go forward. The clutch is completely worthless. It's not even an on-off switch. It's literally just on all the time. So I need to pull the transmission, which is a big, huge job. And it's another reason why I don't want to put coolant in here, because if I need to pull any coolant hoses, it's no big deal. It's just distilled water in the system. So this actually sets me up really, really well for the next phase of the project. And I gotta say, guys, I am so excited because I have turned this car from a pile of junk that was, you know, for sale as a salvage to potentially being something people are gonna want. I cannot think of a better place to end this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you are here for my Camaro videos, I got one coming up. That's all I'm going to say. I have been reading the comments and interacting with you guys, and you guys gave me some great ideas. That's all I'm going to say right now. But a video is going to happen soon. And beyond that, I got another surprise for you right behind the camera. You can't see it right now, but I'm looking right at it. And probably only going to do one video on it. So stay tuned. So thank you again for watching. Thank you to everybody that contributed to this project. Thank you to Alex. Thank you to Mike. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for the parts and for, your friendship, I guess. No, thank you so much. It's really just been an amazing journey with this car. Just having the support that I've had, the people giving me the encouragement, the people that are actually looking at my car saying, wow, your car is awesome. And I say, well, I'm going to have another one for sale pretty soon. So if you want a 1989 Honda Prelude SI in blue, just keep watching. It's coming. If you like what you see, as always, like, share, subscribe, and comment. And if you don't like what you see, maybe you think iridium spark plugs are bad for your car. If that's you, I definitely want to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.